Greetings, friends. The film Schwarz Weiß, or Black White, is the best acting I can remember seeing in a long time. It's certainly the best short war film I've ever seen. It felt uncannily real. There'll be a few spoilers here, so I highly recommend you watch this 16-minute film, which is available on YouTube. Please see the link in the description. It's in German, but there are good English subtitles. Part of the reason the film feels so convincing may be that it just gives a lot of time for the actors to interact, make small talk, or just sit and listen. Unlike the series Band of Brothers, where the acting and the characters never seemed believable, Schwarz Weiß feels like you're actually watching two German soldiers defend a machine gun nest from the advancing Russians in 1945. That's not true of other recent war films from the German perspective, like Verstaubt sind die Gesichter, Dusty Are the Faces, which was a German language series of short films similar to Band of Brothers. And like Band of Brothers, something about Dusty Faces doesn't seem quite believable. The description of Schwarz Weiß on the YouTube channel which plays it says, "Senior capstone project at Northern Arizona University in 2015. Filmed in 2 days on location in Flagstaff, Arizona." It looked like Poland to me, but I've never been to Poland. Clearly they had a small budget. The plot is simple and there are only a few different scenes to film, but they made it work perfectly. The film shows that sometimes less is more. The setting is a machine gun nest in a harsh winter landscape of meadow and pine forest. I read some comments from people who said they had a military background, and they said that it wasn't so likely that Germans would ever dig down in the open where they could be sniped from trees, although we see in a different angle that they are actually on the edge of a tree line. But they didn't set up their position in the thick woods, and that seems quite plausible to me, because how would you be able to set up a fortified position in the midst of a thicket? You wouldn't be able to see very much. They had to cover the ground where an advance was most likely. And yes, this does give the feeling of being dangerously exposed. But if you're in the trees, you're going to be hit by splinters. I mean, you don't want to be hit by earth either, but splinters are worse. And anyways, the German army in 1945 was on the retreat and they were trying to shore up losses. So they weren't exactly in a good position to locate their defenses most ideally. So the two main characters are part of a line of defenses, but it's clear that the other positions are not exactly close by. They send runners to communicate with the different positions, and this is the only glimpse of the rest of the German army we get. We almost never see the Soviets, but we are made quite aware by the sound of guns and shells that they are not far away. There's a night scene when the sky is alight with tracer bullets and the sounds of gunfire from all directions. You have no way of knowing what exactly is going on and where. You are limited to the view of the common soldier. This is part of the reason the film succeeds, by doing less and not more. Rather than showing you a lot of combat, it plays on suspense. It also shows you that war is mostly drudgery. The highlight of the film is Wilms. I find him fascinating. There are some opposite forces within Wilms which I think made his character captivating. On the one hand, he's deeply cynical. On the other hand, he has a highly developed sense of humor and is relatively at ease in the face of terrible circumstances. Wilms has seen plenty of combat, unlike his foil, Rookie, who is new at the front. We learn that Wilms had fought in Normandy before being transferred to the Eastern Front. At times, he seems unbearably pessimistic. He tells Rookie not to bother writing his girlfriend back home because we're probably not going to survive, and even if we do, life is going to suck. My favorite dialogue between the two characters happens when some shells are bursting nearby, and it seems the enemy could appear imminently. Wilms asks Rookie, "Are you ready for your baptism of fire?" To which Rookie responds, "I've done this before, Wilms." To which Wilms says, "You have no idea what's going on here, Rookie." Wilms is critical of Rookie, but not angry. His statement is blunt and matter-of-fact. I'm sure there were moments when German soldiers on the Eastern Front told their mates that they were all going to starve, and they didn't mean it in a demoralizing way. They were just surmising the situation. But in addition to being serious and pessimistic, Wilms is a funny guy. He even seems to be goofing around at times. Maybe I'm reading into it a bit too much, but for instance, when he offers the thermos to Rookie to take a drink, and then Rookie declines, Wilms sort of shrugs. He has a certain expression on his face. So this may be my own subjective opinion, but there's just something about the acting of Wilms which I thought was really effective in a goofy sort of way. I mean, there's a case where he plays a record, to get music, which I imagine was probably against the regulations, but overall he's quite serious about being ready to receive the enemy. And Wilms has no problem poking Rookie, figuratively speaking, making fun of him, or... To be honest, it's just the acting job of the man who portrayed Wilms. Like I said, I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not so much what Wilms says, it's the tone he uses and the facial expressions he has. That's how you see that Wilms is as much of a joker as he is a fighter. The character of Rookie does a good job of conveying at first innocence, and then terror, and then misery as he becomes resigned. At the end, Rookie is barely even interested in watching the front. He's a sitting duck, but he doesn't seem to care. We see him initiated into the world that Wilms knows, and not caring about what is going on at home is part of this initiation. Losing your worries for the home front and those you know there. But then again, Rookie never seemed interested in watching the front in the first place. He never really seemed prepared to fight at all. There is perhaps some suggestion that the stronger and more able fighting men get spent earlier, and in the end your army is left with weak men. In our present circumstances, we can take some instruction from the character of Wilms. He's not perfect. He makes a comment that the Allies should have bombed the cathedral in Rookie's hometown, which suggests that Wilms might be an atheist, or perhaps he has lost respect for the church for not offering enough resistance to the Nazi regime, or maybe Wilms was just joking. With Wilms, you're never quite sure. That's why I find him so interesting. Of course, when I say we can take inspiration from Wilms, I do not advocate violence, nor am I saying that the Third Reich was better than the Allied powers. The war sucked a lot of good men into the army who never had any business in actually starting the war. And like Wilms and Rookie in 1945, today we find ourselves in a situation that may seem hopeless. Our enemies are crushing us. Germany was raped, dismantled, and indoctrinated for generations to come. I mean, I guess you could say they were indoctrinated before that, but they were indoctrinated with, the socialist ideology. And this may be the fate of the modern West. It's okay to be cynical and black-pilled, but it's also important to balance the cynicism. You can still have a light heart. Sometimes events are beyond our control. Sometimes a sense of humor is the only means of freedom you have left. And besides humor, there is the fighting spirit. We don't back down just because our enemies are more numerous and more powerful. Rather, we cooperate with our group as best we can. And we define ourselves as individuals when we confront seemingly impossible odds. Hasta luego, amigos.